Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at another one of these season updates for the Might and Mastery season of Go Battle League, and that is Spiritomb. Spiritomb's charge attack Rock Tomb got a big buff. It now does more damage, it costs less energy, and it still has the guaranteed attack drop. Pairing that up with Sucker Punch, which is a dark type clone of what Counter used to be before its nerf, and you have a pretty scary combination. I paired up Spiritomb with a Superior and the newly buffed Rollout Lapras and had very positive results. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're off to a tough start in game number 1, leading Superior into Clodsire. But the Blastoise save switch is unanswered by my opponent. Hydro Cannon is going to connect, dealing massive damage. Opponent tries for a Hydro Cannon catch onto Golisopod, but all Golisopod's going to get is pain as Blastoise makes the Skull Bash and leaves that Golisopod devastatingly low to getting farmed down. X-Scissor is going to connect Blastoise with a big farm down. Clodsire has a ton of energy banked, but they will lose the CMP tie to Blastoise if they bring in the Claude, and that's exactly what they do. So now Blastoise has very successfully flipped switch advantage, got a shield advantage, and now Spiritomb is in a great spot. Spiritomb, if you take a look at its meta win rate in all evens, the 0s, 1s, and 2s, if I'm not mistaken, its win rate is over 60%. So it has a truly crazy win rate. The only knock on Spiritomb is it is a little bit slow when it comes to its pacing, but due to the fact that Rock Tomb now has really good damage, it's cheaper, and it has a guaranteed attack drop, this has turned this Pokemon into an absolute force to be reckoned with. Blastoise as well was also a star on this team. Blastoise to me, I know I just featured Lapras, I think Blastoise is the best water type in the Open Great League. Don't get me wrong, Lapras is great, but Blastoise I think just is a little bit better. We move to the next match, leading into a Drapion, safe switch into the Blastoise, out comes Jellicent. I do not want to get Shadow Balled and farm down, so I'm actually going to throw a Skull Bash at a Ghost type. This looks like a weird play, but bear with me here. I do want to preserve the Blastoise if at all possible, because I know that Blastoise, normally a Shadow Ball plus the Hexes, I think I would get farmed down. Whereas now, I can take a Shadow Ball pretty comfortably, I can look to bank some energy and send in Superior. This team is technically ABA weak to Drapion. Even so, Drapion isn't the worst thing ever to see, because Superior can do some pretty nice damage, and Spiritomb does actually beat Shadow Drapion in the one shield, despite the fact that it is a Dark Ghost type. And now, my opponent, I'm very okay letting this go, but they end up baiting that forces them to throw more energy, and now Spiritomb should go absolutely wicked in the back. Spiritomb with a little bit of advantage is just unreal. I think it's a terrific anti-meta pick. Crunch is going to be shielded. It's going to be Lapras in the back, and poor Lapras with its Psy-Waves double resisted due to the dark subtyping. Rock Tomb is going to slow their roll as well. Now their attack is debuffed, so I can very comfortably tank any move on the Spiritomb. Spiritomb is very nice anti-Lapras technology, and now I get to go for the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb used to be a terrible move. Now, it just KOs. It has really good damage now. We get to Sucker Punch down Drapion. In comes Jellicent, and that is a 1v3 Spiritomb endgame sweep to secure the victory. Hopping into the next match, Superior versus Malamar. Malamar did get updated this season as well. Foul Play does now actually do less damage, but it also costs less energy. So Foul Play has the exact same counts now as Superpower. So Foul Play is going to connect. I'm comfortable tanking 1 on Superior because I know it does less damage than it did last season. Superior is at a pacing disadvantage now, which is a little bit uncomfortable. My opponent is going to go for another Foul Play, and I can look to farm up with the Superior and look to pick up the KO or grab the final shield with a Frenzy Plant. Frenzy Plant is going to knock out the Malamar, and the opponent sends in a rollout Blastoise. I do really think that Blastoise is what Bibarel wants to be. It's a water type rollout user, but the great thing about Blastoise is it's bulky, and Bibarel was always frail. And now I'm going to bring in my own Blastoise. They should get to the Skull Bash one before I do, so I'm going to switch and catch onto Spiritomb. Tell me it's the Skull Bash. It is. That's double resisted onto the Spiritomb, and now Spiritomb is in a position to absolutely devastate in this endgame. Opponent farming up quite a bit. They're going to send out Gastrodon, and look at this. I need 2 moves to knock out, so I'm just going to debuff them with Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is now going to make it so they cannot KO with Mud Slaps plus Body Slam. They have to commit to an Earth Power. I can just KO with a Shadow Ball. Goodbye Gastrodon. They bring in their Blastoise, I bring in mine, and it's Skull Bash time. Sunglasses Blastoise, KOing the regular Blastoise, and taking the win. We've got a pretty tricky Pokemon on the lead in the next match, Serperior against Pangoro. Pangoro would be really bad for my backline because I have obviously a Sucker Punch user and a Rollout user. They full send a close combat and send out Dusknoir. Dusknoir, a Pokemon that honestly is very, very scary now that it does have access to Dynamic Punch. You can run either Hex or Astonish. This trainer is on Astonish, which means they have a lot more fast move pressure, but they are slower to charge moves than Hex is. So, unfortunately, I did have to go down a shield because I entered the matchup down energy. But look at Rock Tomb's damage. This is resistant onto Pangoro, and it looks like that I'm actually going to be able to pick up the knockout here with the Rock Tomb unless they shield. And if they shield, I'm sniping with an Aerial Ace to pressure the final shield. So this way, they go from 2 shields to 0 in a split second. In the back is Dragapult. Oh my goodness, the double Astonish team. And I think I'm actually in trouble here. Frenzy did a ton of damage, but the issue is I'm gonna have to shield a Shadow Ball, and Pangoro has a move. So this game is gonna come down to a true 50-50. My opponent has the move. They win the CMP tie, so the question is, do I stay in and predict them to not throw, or do I switch? I say switch, and I get it right. They throw the move, and getting that prediction right means that I'm gonna win this game. Pangoro, definitely a scary Pokemon in this meta, and I think Pangoro is going to be a really strong Pokemon in this meta as well. But with a well-timed catch, we're able to take home the win. Serperior versus Corsola. Corsola, a Pokemon that did get nerfed this season. Now Nightshade does 10 less damage, which means there are a lot of matchups like the Azumarill ones and the Malamar ones that Corsola used to win that it now finds itself on the losing end of. My opponent is going to go for a move, and I'm very okay playing this out with Serperior, as Serperior does very, very nicely here. And because of the debuff to the Nightshade damage, I actually lived that pretty well. Frenzy Plant is going to be shielded, and now I have a choice to make. I decide to let this go. I'm not going to play for Switch Advantage. Instead, I'm going to get Farm on Spiritomb. Spiritomb, with quite a bit of energy, can deal with a lot, but it can't deal with a Wigglytuff. I send in the Blastoise, and my opponent has a Blastoise of their own. That's really unfortunate. If I had Switch Advantage, I would be in such a good spot right now, but unfortunately, I do not. And that means that I think, odds are, I'm probably going to be losing this game. So they're going to go for the Hydro Cannon. I am just going to try and exit with as much residual energy as I possibly can, because having shields doesn't really help me here. I just need to exit with a ton of residual energy. Here, I think I should have gone for an undercharge maybe, so I could try and leave with the back-to-back, but I'm going to switch in Spiritomb and go for the Rock Tomb. I know this is a nightmare matchup, but I get a debuff, and I'm going to try and make it to another move. Come on, Spiritomb. Oh, we fall just short, and that, unfortunately, is going to doom us to a game loss. I guess I should have just played for Switch Advantage, because with Switch Advantage, Blastoise on Wigglytuff, Blastoise does amazingly there, and Spiritomb would have done fine into Blastoise just by virtue of debuffing it, but unfortunately, I didn't play for Switch, and that decision cost me. Picking up a bad lead leading into a Goodra. I save switch into Blastoise. I'm going for the Skull Bash. Opponent is going to make a catch and a switch out on a Tentacruel, but Tentacruel doesn't want a Skull Bash here either, so that does not work out too well for my opponent. They end up throwing an Acid Spray on alignment just to get some damage off, but I'm pretty sure that with the Skull Bash and the rollouts, I've put them pretty close to Hydro Cannon range. So I'm going to go for the Hydro Cannon. They shield once. Are they really going to double shield for switch? If they do, I am going to pivot out. I do think that, at least so far, this is a meta where I have enjoyed playing more flexibly. Obviously, losing Switch Advantage or giving up Switch Advantage in that past game did end up costing me, as unfortunately I had a Wigglytuff onto the Spiritomb. But against most things that aren't Wigglytuff, I found that Spiritomb does have quite a bit of play, and Blastoise just felt so incredibly neutral in so many situations. My opponent is going to be firing off another charge attack as I could get to a move on my Superior, and now it's time for Spiritomb. Spiritomb, I am going to shield because I haven't applied any debuffs yet, and I would rather be able to apply debuffs and then take moves later. I get a full Sucker Punch farm down. In comes a Marowak, and Marowak, I'm immediately going for the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to connect. That's some significant damage onto the Marowak. Marowak farming up. There's an attempted catch on a Tentacruel. They are unsuccessful, and they will resign the match. Superior against Morpeko. Great lead for me. Morpeko would be a problem in the back. So, unless I'm baiting it out with a Blastoise and have an energy advantage, I really want to see it here. The fact that they're staying in, they must have something in the back that is also weak to Superior. Otherwise, they would just pivot out. So, Morpeko, Frenzy would KO, so they are forced to shield. And now that they are in the Hangry form, I am going to respect the Dark-type Aura Wheel. They do go for it, so that is a very important shield. I'm going to look to overfarm ever so slightly and put pressure on the final shield of the opponent. Frenzy Plant, they're just going to let that go. And now, they're going to bring out a Shadow Lapras. Shadow Lapras, these Psywaves do add up quite a bit. I'm going to full send the Frenzy Plant, get a shield, and now pivot into the Blastoise. Blastoise, again, just offers tremendous neutral play. I'm going to let this go. This could potentially be a Skull Bash, and it is. Oh my goodness, Blastoise gets rocked. I guess I should have respected it. I was used to a non-Shadow Lapras damage. That Shadow damage is crazy. In the back, they have Jellicent, and I'm in a great spot to close out the game with Spiritomb. Because Spiritomb, it is the same typing as Sableye, which means Ghost moves only hit for neutral. So I can always tank whatever they throw here. They're going to go for the Shadow Ball. That's not a problem for Spiritomb. Spiritomb gets to fire off its own Shadow Ball, pick up the knockout, and then all that's left is the very low health Lapras. Superior versus Shadow Swampert, the Dream Lead. Shadow Swampert did get a buff this season as well, as it now has access to the newly buffed Sludge. Galarian Moltres save switch, answer with the rollout Blastoise. I no shield, and I end up successfully calling the bait. Now I'm going for the Skull Bash. They know they can tank a Hydro Cannon, but they cannot tank a Skull Bash plus one rollout, and now I'm boosted, which means this Swampert's gonna have a terrible time trying to farm me down. Blastoise gets the fire off the Hydro Cannon. This is a Spiritomb showcase, but the more I played Blastoise, it a little bit felt like Blastoise was stealing the show, because it's just very bulky and Skull Bash puts in a lot of work. In the back, they have Bombardier. So now we have the battle of the Sucker Punch users. Bombardier also has access to Rock Tomb, but they have a slightly cheaper move in Fly, so they're going to be spamming out Flies. Spiritomb, despite the fact that it's up against a Dark Flyer, should do okay enough here. Spiritomb, I believe, does actually have even shield scenario win cons against Mandibuzz, just because Spiritomb is an incredibly crazy Pokemon. And now, I'm going to build up to the Frenzy and go for the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace should, I believe, put them into farm down range, and it does. And by getting the farm down, we're able to take the win, as Swampert is unable to get to the two moves that it needs. Spiritomb also wins the 1s and the 2 shield versus Diggersby. I think it's a very scary Pokemon. It's a bit technical just because of the fact that it does have kind of slow pacing, but I think that Rock Tomb is a very scary move to deal with. Here, my opponent is going to throw a Crunch before they send in Lapras. We get to connect with a Skull Bash, and thanks to the Skull Bash, they can't farm down, and they're forced to throw energy. That is quite nice. It is going to be the Sparkling Aria, and now I get to go for a farm on Superior. Superior, I'm going to be no shielding. Even if it is the Ice Beam, I can survive it, and it will be the Ice Beam. That's some pretty significant damage, and I will get the farm down. Opponent gonna bring in the Drapion. Drapion, I'm going for the Frenzy Plant just to get some damage on it. And now it is Spiritomb time. Spiritomb met with a Wigglytuff. And yeah, Spiritomb, it is a lot of play, but against the Wigglytuff, it's not gonna have a fun time. Hopping to the final match, leading Superior into Lapras, and the Lapras is not switching out. Great news for me, as Superior does very, very well here. Opponent is going to farm up a ton of energy, and I'm more than happy to commit the shield in case they have Ice Beam. They are going to go for the Sparkling Aria. I'm going to do one in the move, and I believe they're short of a move here, or at least I thought they were, but it's actually 13 to the Ice Beam after the first Sparkling Aria, and that's a huge misplay by me. That is a certified day one of the season moment right there, as I lose so much health and energy on Superior. I'm going to bring in the Blastoise. Blastoise sacrificing health in exchange for energy, because Blastoise's energy can go very far, especially against a Golurk. Golurk's gonna have to shield, and I'm gonna bring in Spiritomb. Spiritomb hits the field. They are just getting shredded by Sucker Punch. Again, Sucker Punch is a Dark-type clone of pre-nerf Counter. In the back is Runerigus, and this game is over. Very comfortable win for Spiritomb. Shadow Ball picks up the KO, and then Golurk is gonna get Sucker Punch down. All in all, I think the Spiritomb is dramatically improved and moves from basically more or less an unusable Pokemon to now with this big buff to Rock Tomb, and considering all the Psywave users that are now out, Spiritomb is now incredibly strong anti-meta. I do think that potentially with how the meta shakes out, it could potentially even sneak up to meta status. It'll a little bit depend how the meta settles, because obviously with so many changes, the meta is going to be very much up in the air for quite a few days. But I think a Pokemon that has this combination of Sucker Punch and Rock Tomb, it's a scary, scary combination. And I think Spiritomb, with its really good typing, it's the same typing that Sableye has, is in a really nice position to take advantage of it. So I'm intrigued to see how the meta ends up shaking out. But if Lapras is a pretty big player, you can bet that Spiritomb is going to put in a tremendous amount of work, since it just absolutely destroys Lapras. Now onto the second buffed Pokemon that I used on the team, Blastoise. After using Blastoise, I am a believer. Blastoise, it just feels incredible on the safe swap. It really feels like there's not a lot that can really switch into it outside of fighters. Even something like a Morpeko, unless they're incredibly fast on the swap, at minimum, you are able to grab a shield with a Hydro Cannon because your pacing is very, very fast. So I really like Blastoise. Blastoise feels like the heir apparent to a lot of the rollout users that they've had, like the Bibarels of the world, the Dunsparces of the world, and Blastoise, just by virtue of being that mono water type with rollout, now just has amazing coverage into so many things. And to me, I know Lapras is great. I don't expect Lapras to go anywhere, but I think that Blastoise is even a little bit better than Lapras. Blastoise, specifically with Skull Bash. I think Skull Bash is a large part of what makes Blastoise so good, but Blastoise felt unbelievable to run today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.